know that for these beautiful children who are just confused, have, many, 30% of them are autistic. The majority of them have been sexually or physically assaulted and traumatized, and they haven't dealt with those traumas. This is all just such a vicious cycle. And then to allow them to be bought for sex, this is just not okay.
And we also have his bill, SB 357, which was basically legalized loitering with the intent to prostitute, which just made it worse. And handcuff law enforcement, no pun intended, handcuff them so they can't help these children, because at first they used to be able to go and it's really hard to articulate because it's so obvious what they're trying to do. And they always do it under the guise of empowering, like we were just talking about, empowering and giving them access. And like you said, empowering them through sex work to, lift themselves up by their bootstraps, empowering them to have, professional options, empowering them to make health or medical decisions, when really it is, again, just making them more vulnerable and injuring them and harming these communities. It's so disingenuous, but they're so good at spinning it. I think and when they do that, right, we want to empower and give access and equity and parity to these disenfranchised communities. You can't say no to that, right? Like I can't say no to supporting suicide. Exactly. But they try and make it that way. It scares a lot of people who aren't like you and I, who are aware of what's going on and what these policies actually do.
Right. Well, and they are masterful with their manipulation and writing the words, and then our media writes it in such a beautiful way that it sounds like we're empowering them. But we know that human trafficking is the number 2 leading enterprise in the world. California ranks highest in the nation for human trafficking. Yes, these people are out there loitering, trying to earn a living, but our law enforcement has no way of ascertaining whether they're out there willingly or they're being trafficked. So we have children, we have women, we have men being trafficked, and they have no chance of being rescued because of SB 357.
No, I totally
Scott Weiner.
Right. And I think it's really interesting that you actually mentioned Susan Eggman, because the cognitive dissonance, they're actually I actually don't think they know what they're doing. Going to your earlier point about some of the Democrats not being on board with the policies that are being passed, because but right now we have the transgender and the LGBTQ flag that is really protecting and insulating any of these bad bills from pushback, because Senator Eggman, as you just mentioned, went off on the Senate floor of how she's tired of selling children. She's tired of protecting buyers. She's tired of her party. She's tired of playing politics with children's lives. But Senator Susan Eggman is a principal co-author of AB 1955, which is just hurtling through the California legislature. And I really want to make this point, and I do want to talk about Assembly Bill 1955, because in my opinion, from the work that I've been doing, lobbying and advocating at the Capitol the last 2.5 years specifically, it is the last and missing final puzzle piece of that human trafficking ring that you are speaking about. Because AB 1955 that Senator Susan Eggman is a co-author of is going to make it illegal for schools to pass policies to inform parents when their children are suffering from mental disorders such as gender dysphoria. And it's going to start with gender dysphoria and it'll keep on going to include different mental disorders. And it's a mental disorder per the American Psychiatric Association and the Diagnostic Manual, not because I'm a conspiracy theorist or a bigot. It's gender dysphoria is a mental disorder. Number 2, it's going to make it illegal for schools to take any disciplinary action against teachers for their work activities and for their instruction and for supporting children in their exercise of specified rights. It doesn't define any of those terms. So what we're going to have if AB 1955 passes, Senator Eggman, is we're going to have children going into schools where we already know that teachers are creating secret LGBTQ clubs with secret closets, with secret chest binders and tuck tape, where they have secret conversations, secret libraries. They're already exposing them to pornography and obscene materials. And then if AB 1955 passes, they will not be able to tell parents when their children are suffering. And the school, even if you have a good school, good conservative school or traditional school, whatever you want to call it, or they won't be able to do anything about it if they actually disapprove of that kid. Disapprove of that teacher and what they're doing, what work activities or instruction they're doing with those children. So you have that, and then you have basically the children will be able to be taken captive. The schools will not be able to do anything about it if AB 1955 passes. And then exactly what you mentioned, they're going to create this wedge between students and parents. And this is a message to Senator Susan Eggman. The children will become victim to these activists or groomers or whatever you want to call them who want to get in the way in between the child and the parent. We're going to have these secret policies, these secret interactions. The children will be torn away because we're already telling them, you can see it from the language of the bill, that parents are not to be trusted. Parents are dangerous. We need this bill to protect children from their dangerous parents and guardians. So now we are going to have them alienated from their parents. And then we're going to have these individuals, employees or contractors, offering to them, well, asking them, are you comfortable at home? What's going on at home? And then they're going to say, well, why don't you go to Senator Scott Weiner's, again, and Assemblywoman Wendy Carrillo's government shelters, which was under AB 665 last year. And then when they're there in these government shelters without any notice to their parents, let alone their consent, then we have, again, Assemblymember Christopher Ward, who is the principal author of AB 1955. He authored AB 223, which passed last year, which FLTJ was sounding alarm on. Now we have these children alienated from their parents. Now they're living in these shelters. And now any adult can change that child's name, gender, or sex. This is under AB 223 without notice, let alone consent from their parents. These children are now in government custody, in a government shelter, in a government facility, and their identity has been completely erased from society. That is, like you just mentioned, foster care. These children, it's not that they don't have people who care about them. It's that their parents and guardians and families cannot find them thanks to Senator Scott Weiner, Assemblyman Christopher Ward, Assemblyman Rick Zabur, Corey Jackson, Wendy Carrillo. They will disappear. That is the prime target of human trafficking. So it goes directly to what you were talking about and a wholly unrelated, answer to one of my questions. All of this is to alienate the children, isolate them, and then disappear them into this human trafficking ring that is California. It's terrifying.